Funny Valentine is, in my opinion, not only the greatest villain in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but one of the greatest antagonists in anime and manga, period. And the funny thing is, when he's first introduced in the manga, he doesn't even seem threatening at all. The first time we see the President of the United States in Steel Ball Run, he's just hiding behind a curtain, speaking through silhouettes, being built up as this mysterious figure pulling the strings from the shadows. And then when Araki finally reveals him, we get this, just some short, pudgy looking politician. No, seriously, if you showed this Valentine along with all of the other antagonists of Steel Ball Run and asked someone to guess who the final villain of this part was gonna be, he would probably be one of the last characters they would pick. Yet by the end of the Steel Ball Run, this same man now becomes one of the most intimidating, dangerous, and fascinating villains that Araki has ever written. Not because he's the strongest or even because he has the most broken stand, but because of, unlike the other JoJo villains, Valentine can actually make you understand him. And that's exactly what makes him so threatening and dangerous in this part. Not because of his powerful stand or anything else, it was his ability to make people believe him. And today, I'm gonna break down why Funny Valentine is the greatest villain in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and how Araki turned what should be a ridiculous looking character into one of the most memorable antagonists in manga history. In Steel Ball Run, Funny Valentine serves as the 23rd president of the United States and the true mastermind behind the Steel Ball Run race itself. But what makes Valentine so interesting is that, unlike most villains, he isn't driven by personal greed or just desire for power. He's already the president. He already possesses more influence and authority than almost anyone else in the country, and his stand power is already one of the strongest there is. Valentine isn't pursuing the power of the Saint Corps because he just wants money, revenge, or domination above others. In his mind, every action he takes is in service of a single goal, and that's simply just securing a better future for America. And that exactly is already what makes him so dangerous, because as a character, he's charismatic, intelligent, and incredibly persuasive, but above all else, he's extremely patriotic. And this already is just one aspect of Valentine that makes him so threatening to the story. But in order to achieve a better future for America, Valentine uses what is arguably one of the most powerful weapons in all of manga, and that's simply his words. But if I just say that he uses his words, you probably won't get that initially, so I'm gonna take you throughout this manga, starting from our first encounter with Valentine to show you how his words can be so convincing that it becomes a weapon even stronger than any stand power could ever be, leading to the final battle of this part not being done by punching or just two stands going at it, but rather Valentine just having a conversation with Johnny. About a quarter of the way into the series, we see the Steel Ball Run race event organizer Steven Steele speak with Valentine for the first time, where he tells him the details that Johnny and Gyro have crossed the Devil's Palm and they have possibly gained a corpse part. Except he's not even talking with Valentine. He's instead forced to communicate through a curtain, with the president hidden in nothing but silhouette. His face is obscured and every feature is concealed, and Araki deliberately keeps him shrouded in mystery, basically just having him aura farming already, building an almost just mythical aura around him before we have even been properly introduced to him. Now, if you've only ever seen part 7 just fan arts or memes, first of all, read the manga, it's literally amazing, but you probably picture the impossibly ripped, super handsome president that is so patriotic that he literally has stars and stripes carved into his back. But that's not who Araki introduces us to. Instead, shortly after this moment, we're greeted by a short, pudgy, almost goofy looking guy who doesn't look threatening in the slightest. And not only that, he's surrounded by two of his aides that honestly look a lot more threatening and villain-like than himself. And if it wasn't for the fact that we see him directly responding to what Steven said, you probably wouldn't even have guessed that this was the guy that would be of any importance to the series going forward. And that's exactly what makes this introduction so brilliant. Araki has spent several chapters building up this mysterious figure lurking in the shadows and building up a mystery around these corpse parts and what the real reason for the Steel Ball Run race might be, only to have us revealed to the true mastermind being this pudgy looking guy. However, this is very disarming. It lowers your guard. You actually begin to wonder if this guy could even be of anyone worth note going forward in the series. Now after this, as the Steel Ball Run race continues on, not only does our perception and understanding of Valentine also progress, but so does his appearance alongside with it, which directly coincides with his growth and involvement in the race. As Johnny and Gyro go throughout the race, initially Valentine takes a back seat, but he's still always influencing events of the race by strategically sending sending numerous hitmen after the duo, but being careful to never involve himself directly. However, it's through the introduction of Lucy Steele, a seemingly innocent young girl, that the readers are able to finally peel back the curtain and see the man hiding behind the title of president, and also what leads to his eventual downfall. During the introduction, completely unbeknownst to Valentine, Lucy has been secretly observing him from a distance and eavesdropping on him, initially actually by accident, but she is actually one of the first characters outside of Valentine and his aides to hear about the plot of the Holy Corpse. As the race continues on to Kansas City, Valentine is still under the assumption that everything is going according to plan and that the assassins that he is sending should be able to make quick work of Johnny and Gyro. I mean, it's literally just like some handicapped guy and another guy who fights using his balls, right? Well, it's not even them or the other stand users that become his biggest enemy here. It's actually Lucy Steele who takes the forefront in fighting against Valentine even before Johnny and Gyro are able to get to him. But also through Lucy is when we also get the biggest shifts in Valentine's character and also his appearance. In Kansas City, Valentine goes to check if he's received a message via carrier pigeon from one of his assassins that he sent after Johnny and Gyro, as he expects them to have defeated them and then give him the location of the next corpse parts for Valentine to advance his goal. Instead, when Valentine and another one of his assassins, Blackmore, go to the carrier pigeon cage, immediate red flags go off that the pigeon isn't there and that instead there's signs of there actually being an intruder that actually stole the message. But one very interesting thing here is that when Valentine sees this, he doesn't become frantic or worried or upset or anything like that. Instead, he just remains calm. He looks around and analyzes the scene, carefully seeing that the pigeon might be underneath the cage, and he doesn't ask Blackmore to check it for him. Valentine is the one to peel the curtain back underneath to confront the traitor directly. But it's only through Lucy's diversion of letting the pigeon free that she is able to escape before being seen. And I think that this small moment is actually very crucial to the character of Valentine, because this shows that when Valentine was faced with his real first taste of opposition, Valentine already shows that he is willing to get his hands dirty if needed for his goal. He isn't a leader that just hides behind his followers because he's incapable of acting himself. He instead directly shows that as soon as he noticed that there might be a traitor, he was the one to look under the curtain and he was the one to confront them directly. And this leads us to the next big moment of Valentine to show this even more. During the 7th stage, Valentine is informed of Johnny and Gyro heading towards Gettysburg, and also that they have almost completely assembled the Saint's corpse, thanks in part to Lucy, who actually stole the current corpse part that Valentine previously had, although they're still missing the corpse head, with Valentine now deciding that this is the time that he needs to move and get more involved. Johnny and Gyro are in the middle of a fight against Axl Rowe, who's currently has possession of the assembled corpse parts, and he begins fleeing the scene when out of nowhere, a shot rings out, with a bullet striking Axl Rowe, with a mysterious figure appearing around the corner with a familiar glove on. Almost like a horror villain, Valentine appears staring directly at Johnny after just shooting and killing Axl Rowe before he just grabs the corpse part and starts walking away. And what's interesting here as well is what Valentine first says to Johnny. Now keep in mind, in this moment, this is the president appearing before a racer after literally just killing someone, where he tells Johnny that his actions actually just saved Johnny as he was losing his fight against Axl Rowe. So this is actually a legitimate cause for him to interfere to not only gain the corpse parts, but also to save Johnny, which he is basically telling Johnny that he should actually be appreciative of that. Which is a great moment in just a few lines of dialogue to show that Valentine truly does believe that the ends justify the means, and he is even willing to directly involve himself and also kill anybody needed for his goal of gaining the corpse parts to protect America. And with him being so directly involved, he also doesn't hide anything more behind the curtains, and he directly tells Johnny to confirm that he is here for the corpse parts and he is the true mastermind behind the Steel Ball Run race for this reason, before he just suddenly vanishes, now having gained almost a complete corpse aside from the corpse skull and then the left and right eyes. So now with this, Valentine has almost completed his goal. He's now almost got all of the corpse parts. It's Lucy who interferes, and this is when we get the change in Valentine's looks, but also a huge shift in how he's gonna act going forward. So now Valentine is closer than ever to achieving his goal, and he's gathered all of the corpse parts, with his plan finally coming together, and for the first time in the story, it feels feels like nobody can stop him at this point. But once again, it's Lucy Steele who interferes and gets in front of his plan, and it's here that we see not only the most famous change in Valentine's appearance, but also a massive shift in his character. While at the Independence Hall, Valentine comes face to face with Lucy, who has disguised herself as his wife, Scarlet Valentine. During the confrontation, Valentine removes his coat, revealing the version of the character that most fans are familiar with today, where gone is the short, pudgy politician from earlier in the story, and in his place now stands a tall, muscular, almost larger than life figure, complete with the American flag scrawled across his back. Now, interestingly enough, Araki actually never explicitly explains this transformation, with some fans speculating that it was just simply an evolution of his art style, with others believing that it was a deliberate redesign to make Valentine appear more imposing as he stepped into the role of the story's true final antagonist. But honestly, I don't think the reason why he changed really matters nearly as much as the effect of this change, because from this point onward, Valentine just feels different in the manga. Earlier in the Steel Ball run, he often operated from the shadows, he relied on subordinates and hired assassins to carry out his plans, while he just observed from a distance. But after this point, that version of Valentine is just largely gone. He's no longer content with simply just directing events from behind the scenes. Valentine now begins taking a far more active role in the story as he confronts his enemies personally, and he places himself directly in danger and becomes increasingly uncompromising in his pursuit of the Saint's corpse. Later on, Valentine is forced to work with Lucy as she is impregnated with the last corpse part of the corpse head, which that truly is only a sentence that makes sense in a Jojo series, so don't put too much thought into that. But as they're boarding a ship to the next location of New Jersey, Lucy attempts to escape alongside her husband Stephen Steele, but Valentine quickly realizes that he can use Stephen's condition to his advantage as he's severely wounded right now. At this point, Valentine still needs Lucy alive, with the corpse parts being connected to her, and he needs her to accompany him to the final destination in New Jersey. And from Valentine's perspective, convincing Lucy to cooperate is going to be far easier than just forcing her. So as Valentine boards a ship bound for the next stage of his plan, he uses the corpse parts to guide Lucy towards him, and he orders her to come aboard just alone. Lucy, however, begs Valentine to help out her husband Stephen, arguing that she's the only person that he truly needs. And this is where we get one of the most important conversations in all of the Steel Ball run, where Valentine begins explaining his vision to Lucy once again. He tells Lucy that if she just simply cooperates, the future he seeks will bring prosperity and happiness not only to America, but to countless people around the world, showing that, as always, he frames his actions as sacrifices just made for the greater good. But unlike some of the people Valentine has manipulated before in this part, Lucy, however, doesn't buy it, where we see that she has a monologue to herself in her own thoughts that she immediately assumes that Valentine is lying. She believes that he's simply using Stephen as leverage, and that the moment he gets what he wants, both of them will just simply be discarded. And honestly, based on everything we've seen from Valentine up to this point, it's really hard to blame her for this, with Lucy then becoming so desperate that she even attempts to attack Valentine herself, with Valentine of course just easily stopping her. But what's interesting is what he does next, as he doesn't threaten her or he doesn't punish her. Instead, he just continues talking and he uses his words. And this is where we get one of the first instances of Valentine using his most threatening power of that, where he explains to her that her existence has actually been beneficial to his plans, and he repeatedly urges her to surrender herself to what he calls the flow that will bring happiness. When then Valentine notices something. Lucy has been secretly leaving behind clues to her location, where she's tearing off pieces of fabric from her clothes in hopes that someone will find her. And in that moment, Valentine realizes the truth. Lucy doesn't trust him, and that she never will. And if he wants her cooperation, his words will need to have more power to be able to convince her. So Valentine instead makes a promise. He tells her that standing before the holy corpse, he swears that he will not kill Stephen Steele. And immediately, we see something fascinating happen. For the first time, Lucy actually hesitates, not because she trusts him completely now, but because Valentine actually sounds sincere. And moments later, Araki reinforces this by showing Valentine checking on an injured worker aboard the ship, expressing concern for his well-being after he was stung by some bees. To Lucy and to the reader, it appears as though we're seeing a now different side to him, a more kinder and compassionate side. but then the worker follows Valentine inside and he closes the door on them, and using D4C, Valentine disposes of him without a second thought. It's such a small moment in this part, but it's one of the best examples of who Funny Valentine really is, because Valentine understands something incredibly important. People trust what they see. Around people and in public, he specifically appears to be caring and honorable and worthy of being followed, but behind closed doors, no pun intended, he's willing to do absolutely anything if it moves him closer to his goal. And that's exactly why this scene is so important. Because this is already a glimpse into showing not just how Valentine is able to manipulate Lucy and other characters, but he's showing how he can now manipulate us as the readers. But keep that promise to Steven Steele in mind, because now we're going to go on to what's, in my opinion, the greatest final battles in all of manga. Now let's set the scene for this. Valentine is in a train heading towards the final destination of the race alongside Lucy, who still has a corpse head, along with the severely injured Steven Steele that he is basically using as a bargaining chip to keep Lucy in check. And we also have Johnny and Gyro now having learned of the golden rectangle, a power that might or might not exist, but it gives them now a chance to defeat Valentine. Nearing the 8th stage checkpoint of New Jersey, Johnny and Gyro are in hot pursuit and they have caught up to Valentine, leading to our Wild West final standoff between the two opposing forces. With Lucy being near the Saint's corpse, the entire corpse has now infused into her alongside the corpse head, which now slowly turns her entire body into the corpse, and from her emits a light, which will be very important to this fight, as this light basically draws in good things towards it while moving all bad things away from it, and Valentine uses this light to ascend his stand D4C into D4C Love Train. But not only does he use this power to ascend his stand, once more, everything he does is for America. He plans to actually use this Holy Corpse power for America as well, to draw, well, good things towards America and move all bad things out of it to other parts of the world. After the standoff, Johnny and Gyro confront Valentine directly, seeing Valentine using this rift in light to move through the ground, with the duo both splitting going opposite directions, with Johnny firing instantly towards Valentine when the bullet strikes the rift in light, and Valentine shows us its power as the bullet flies off to another part of the world, instead just hitting a random civilian instead of attacking Valentine, with Gyro urging Johnny to wait to fire until his horse has made the golden rectangle, or else they won't stand a chance against his power that Valentine is able to utilize. However, no matter how many times they try and attack Valentine, this power is just too powerful to go against, and virtually no harm can attack Valentine while he's in this rift of light, leading to Valentine being able to land a devastating strike against Johnny, where he injures him and cuts off his arm, and he then uses the rift in light to get closer to Johnny and deliver the final blow against him, when then the light suddenly pulls away from him, where he realizes that Lucy is being pulled away from inside the train. Steven Steele then steps out of the train, heavily bloodied and barely conscious, but he's still mustering up the strength to protect his wife, and with him carrying her away, Valentine is forced to retreat closer to her to be able to still utilize the gap in space. With Johnny now severely injured and unable to continue his pursuit, the race for the corpse and Lucy now comes down to just Gyro and Valentine, with both men rushing towards Lucy, but for completely different reasons. Valentine wants to get to Lucy first, as he's desperately trying to reclaim the power that has nearly slipped through his fingers, while Gyro is determined to make sure that power never falls into Valentine's hands again, where in a narrow victory, Gyro manages to reach Lucy first, lifting her onto his horse and escaping before Valentine can stop him. And for one of the first times in this story, we see Valentine just genuinely lose his composure. Up until now, he's been very calm and calculated and always in control, but watching the corpse slip away from him just causes that facade to crack. Consumed by the frustration, Valentine immediately turns his attention towards Steven Steele, where he uses D4C and he grabs Steven by the throat and begins choking him. Valentine angrily asks Steven, what is he doing? Is he trying to be a hero? And he tells him that he is nothing but a hindrance to the future happiness of this country. And he refers to Lucy as a goddess, saying that she is necessary for peace for the world that Steven is essentially trying to stop right now. Before Valentine does one of the most interesting things here, he then releases D4C so that he can just choke Steven directly with his own bare hands. However, Valentine shows that at the end of the day, no matter how truly angry and just frustrated that he is that Steven just ruined his plans and stopped him from ending Johnny and also stopped him from gaining the complete corpse, in this moment, it would be just so simple to just clutch a little bit harder and just end Steven as well. However, Valentine made a promise, and a promise to Lucy that he made to her standing before the holy corpse. He promised Lucy that he wouldn't hurt Steven, and in this moment, he actually lives up to that promise, admitting to Steven that what Steven did really did hurt him. However, he lets him go, and he even says that he'll later get him medical treatment for his wounds, as Valentine releases his clutch on Steven's throat, dropping him to the ground, and he instead continues to pursue after Gyro. And this moment is actually one of my favorite moments of this part, because this exactly is going to give the final battle between Valentine and Johnny just so much more depth. A little bit later in the fight, after Gyro's death by the hands of Valentine, Johnny is heartbroken. He just lost his best friend and mentor, and he genuinely doesn't know if this is a fight that he might be able to win. Johnny, however, is able to advance his stand of Tusk to Tusk Act 4 with the Golden Rectangle, a power that even surprises Valentine that he didn't know was possible, with Johnny firing off a single shot at Valentine with a spin bullet infused with infinite rotational energy that literally causes Valentine and D4C's entire body to spin infinitely, even all the way down to their cells, as Valentine is now basically stuck in a crater and unable to move. He uses his D4C power to go to several alternate timelines, constantly trying to figure out any way out of this situation, but basically, no matter what Valentine tries to do, he realizes that he's cooked. He basically only has one option to get out of this. It's important to note here that at this point, even Valentine's stand of D4C and trying to utilize his power in any way by going to alternate universes, it's basically rendered useless here. So he uses his ultimate weapon here, and as mentioned, that is his words. After realizing that he's all out of options, Valentine reappears in the base world in front of Johnny, where he raises up his arms and he tells Johnny that he actually surrenders. He acknowledges that he has actually lost his fight, and he admits this to Johnny, telling him that Johnny is the victor here. However, he has a proposition. There are other living Gyro Zeppelins in other dimensions, so Valentine actually proposes a deal to Johnny. He can bring one of those gyros to this world from an alternate dimension. However, only Valentine has this power, so if Johnny were to finish him, he would also have to accept to never be able to see Gyro again and basically lose this option. Johnny is overwhelmed with the option, and he raises his finger preparing to still shoot Valentine, but Valentine quickly tells him to just at least listen to what he has to say first and to not shoot out of panic. He tells Johnny that his goal is simply to collect the corpse parts, and that's all. Everything that has happened throughout the story has all been a result of this goal, but his goal was never to take anybody's lives or to kill Gyro. Johnny actually stops and begins thinking about this, where he's just desperate to see his friend again. With similar to how Valentine also was able to get Lucy to almost trust him, Johnny does the same thing here, with Johnny asking him if Valentine can actually bring Gyro back, with Valentine just responding with one word: I promise you. Johnny asks if he'll be safe and uninjured. Valentine once again promises. Johnny, however, just still wants reassurance, and he asks him that if he does get back, will he just let them go? With Valentine promising that he won't take revenge on anyone. He makes a vow to act like nothing happened between them, and he won't lay a finger on Johnny or Gyro. He only just wants to procure the corpse and nothing else, before saying that he just has one last thing to say. He tells Johnny directly that his actions were not done out of selfish desire, and he doesn't desire to procure the corpse for power or control, but his only goal as president of America is to secure the safety and future of this country, and he wants to use the corpse's power only for that reason. And what's so important about this part is when you're reading this and you read Valentine promising Johnny, even you as the reader has some part of you that believes him. When Valentine made that promise to Lucy earlier to not harm Steven, we saw that when he had a chance to kill Steven after he ruined his plans, Valentine lived up to that promise and he let Steven go, showing you already that he really is a man of his words, so his proposition of a promise here really is believable. And everything that we've seen Valentine do, when he gained the quartz parts in Gettysburg, when he sent different people after Johnny and Gyro throughout the entire race, and when he attacked Lucy in the presidential hall, Almost every time we have saw him, anything he did, he would mention how it was somehow for the betterment of the country. And he even continues in this in telling Johnny that for argument's sake, what if another lowlife or another country got a hold of the corpse? Think of the potential ruin that can happen to the world. Only Valentine can be the one to prevent a scenario like this. And that's what makes this scene just so brilliant. As Valentine then continues speaking, it's not just the reader who begins to question themselves, because Johnny does as well. After everything Valentine has done throughout the Steel Ball run, even through all of the deaths and all of the manipulation, and even after killing his best friend Gyro, Johnny actually openly admits that he actually believes Valentine 100%. And for a brief moment, it genuinely feels like Valentine has won, but not through D4C or not through Love Train, and not just through strength, but through his ability to convince another person that his cause is just. However, Johnny isn't willing to stake the fate of the entire world on just a mere belief, and he says that he just needs to be 101% certain. So Johnny devises one final test. He tosses Valentine an alternate universe revolver, wanting to see what he does when given the opportunity. And it's here that Valentine's greatest flaw finally reveals itself. Throughout the entire story, Valentine has spoken about sacrifice, about duty, and the greater good. He's portrayed himself as a man willing to shoulder any burden for the future of his country. However, in this moment, when he's faced between the choice of achieving his goal or honoring his word, Valentine chooses the goal. The moment the alternate revolver begins attracting towards him, Johnny realizes the truth. Valentine never intended to walk away peacefully. Even after all of these speeches, even after all of these promises, and even after convincing both Johnny and the audience that he actually might be sincere, he was still looking for a way to win. And in that moment, Johnny finally understands something that even us as the audience has been wrestling with for the entire story. Valentine truly believes everything that he's saying, but his belief is exactly what makes him so dangerous. Because no matter how noble his ideals may sound, he will always place his objectives above everything else, even above his promises and above other people, and ultimately above what's right. Realizing this, Johnny fires off a spin bullet before Valentine can act, finally bringing an end to the man who had spent the entire story trying to reshape the world according to his own vision. And that's why, in my opinion, Funny Valentine is the greatest villain in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Not because he had the strongest stand or because he was the most evil or the smartest, but because he's the only JoJo villain that can make both the characters and the audience genuinely question whether he's right. Whenever Dio spoke, you knew that he was a monster. When Kira spoke, you knew that he was evil. And when Diavolo spoke, you knew that he was just protecting himself. But when Valentine speaks, for a brief moment, you stop seeing a villain. You instead see a leader. You see a patriot. You see a man willing to sacrifice everything for what he believes is a better future. And that's exactly what makes him so terrifying. With the scariest villains not being the ones that know that they're evil, but they're the ones who truly believe that they're the hero.